Hi everyone, it's Jarle here. Thanks for joining me today. In this video I'm showing you two envelopes I made using some stencils from Lawn Fawn. So for my envelopes I'm using this 123 envelope punch board from We Are Memory Keepers. You can actually just use some envelopes you bought in a store, but I wanted to have these specific colors, so I'm making them all from scratch. On the left side of the punch board you can find all the instructions on how to create your envelope. And then in those blue rows beneath you can search the measurement of the card you created. So I'm creating an envelope for an A2 sized card, and it gives me directions on how I need to trim my paper, and it also tells me where to punch. I'm taking ballet slippers cardstock from Lawn Fawn and trimming it down to 8 1/4 on all sides. This is the size the punch board told me to use if I want to put an A2 sized card inside. Then I'm moving that left side of my paper to 3 5/8, and then I'm punching for the first time. After that I'm scoring on the right side where you see that score line on the punch board. Then I'm rotating my paper 90 degrees and I'm lining up that score line on the left side with that groove in the punch board. And when my score line is just in that groove, I'm punching for a second time and scoring that right side again. Then I have to repeat these steps another 2 times. So rotating, lining up my score line with that groove, punch and score on the right. It's really super easy to do, and the instructions are very clear. You can see all those score lines on that square piece of cardstock now, and I'm just folding all the flaps on those score lines and enhancing them with my bone folder. And slowly my envelope starts to have its shape. Now I'm taking my punch board again and I'm placing my 4 corners inside that corner rounder. So I have to punch 4 times on all of the corners to round all of them. I'm putting down some double-sided tape on 2 of those side flaps, peeling back the liner paper and closing the envelope. I do press down that tape a bit with my bone folder before removing that liner paper, just so that the glue is really sticking on there. And now my envelope is all finished. I actually made 2 of these envelopes, one with ballet slippers cardstock and one with mermaid cardstock. And I'm starting off with that teal one. First I wanted to protect the top flap of my envelope and I used heavy doodle tape for that. I like this one because it's nice and wide, and so I don't have to worry about color transferring onto that flap. So I placed the first stencil of the Lots of Hearts background stencil on top of my envelope, and then I'm taking the first Distress Oxide color, which was Peacock Feathers, and I blend that ink all over the stencil. I do try to avoid adding ink on the place where I will write my address. It's not really necessary, but I wanted the address to be really visible, so that's why I avoid just that tiny space in the middle of the envelope. After I remove the first stencil, I place the second stencil on top and I'm going over that with Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink. Again, trying to avoid just that middle of the envelope. Now when I remove that stencil, you will see that the whole envelope is covered in blue hearts and that there's a little space where I can write the recipient's address. If I were to do this again, I would preserve some more space for the address, but it's still visible in the end. I will show you that later on in this video. For my second envelope, I am using some masking magic from Gina K Designs to mask off the area where I want to write the address. You can actually just trim out a rectangle piece of that masking paper, but I wanted to use a stencil, so I'm using the Thought Bubbles stencil from Lawn Fawn. And I'm just tracing around that bubble with a pencil on top of that masking paper. And this is super easy to do. And then all I have to do really is cut the mask with my scissors. And because of that cloud shape, it really doesn't have to be perfect. I'm removing that backing of the masking paper and then I'm just placing it where I want my address to go. So this area will be preserved from all color I will put on top. Now I went over the whole envelope with the colors Festive Berries and Picked Raspberry. And you can totally skip this step if you want. And in fact, maybe it would be even prettier if you just use those colors over the stencil I'm using later. So here I'm just using those two colors to ink blend my envelope to create kind of a gradient. I also added in some Kitsch Flamingo in the end, but as I said, if you have a colored envelope, you really don't need to do this. Then I'm using the first stencil of the Falling Hearts from Lawn Fawn, placing it over my envelope and then ink blending the color Picked Raspberry, first all over the envelope. And I don't need to think about the address since I masked it off before. I'm going for a tone-on-tone look here, so that's why I'm using that same color as I did before for my ink blending. And then after removing my first stencil, I am placing down the second stencil and blending the Festive Berries on top. I really love these two colors together and they would be gorgeous over just a plain white envelope as well. So it's time to take off that mask and you can see this area is nicely preserved and this way I can write the address on very clearly. I'm also removing that heavy doodle tape and just look at those crisp lines. This is really my favorite part of the whole process. With a pencil I did draw some lines to write down the address straight. I really need those lines when I'm writing. And then with a Copic multi-liner I'm writing down the address. Nothing fancy, it's just my regular handwriting. And then I removed all those pencil lines. I wanted to add something on the back of the envelope as well, so I used some rainbow washi tape, just placing it on the bottom of the back of the envelope and trimming down the excess left and right with my scissors. And now this envelope is all done. I hope you like my two envelope projects for today. I really need to decorate more envelopes like this. It's super easy when you have a stencil that you love. Just add some ink over top and you've added a personal touch to the envelope. A pretty card deserves a pretty envelope, I think. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye!